Hey guys, Desolate Magic here, and there are a ton of spoilers for Commander this time around. I'm probably not going to even get to all of them. So let's start out with, no surprise here, a Painland. So these are just under $3. I don't like them. I mean, if you spend it for colorless, good for you. But having to pay 1 life every time you just need 1 mana in a long game, it's not smart. By the way, they're also having the, I don't know what you would call these, the vanilla boring come in tapped lands. Well, you gotta fill the slot with something, so that makes sense. And then we've got Thornwood Falls. That should look pretty familiar. It's one of the lifelands. And then, of course, we've got Terramorphic Expanse. You play it, then you sack it, and search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So this literally is Evolving Wilds. Next up, reprint number 10 billion of Temple of the False God. It's a land. You can tap it to add 2 colorless. Activate this ability only if you control 5 or more lands. This is colorless only and very unreliable, but as long as you only pull it late game, it's good, I guess. Next up, we've got Simic Guildgate, because apparently they are just throwing in everything to fix this ridiculous 3-color setup. And you know what the hell? It's throwing Simic Growth Chambers. So it enters the battlefield tapped, and then when it does, you return a land you control to its owner's hand, and then you can tap this for 1 green and 1 blue, but it enters tapped. So this is like just about skip your turn if it's early enough in the game. Oh, and then you'll have 1 extra mana for the rest of the game. It might be worth it, it might not. Next up, Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. Very interesting card here. So you can tap for 1 colorless, or you can tap for 2, spend this mana only to cast colorless spells. Activate this ability only if you control 7 or more lands. That goes in a stupidly narrow type of deck, and I don't think that any of the 4 that we've seen are that type of deck, so thanks, Wizards. By the way, that's the representation of Emrakul in the middle there. Then they threw in Reliquary Tower, because why not? So you have no maximum hand size, tap for colorless. That's right, they threw all this fixing, even just garbage fixing in, and then this, which taps for colorless. At least one of the decks has pretty heavy draw, so I guess this kind of makes sense, but I don't know, lands should generate usable mana. Call me crazy. Then we got Opulent Palace, one of the triple color lands. These aren't worth much, but they haven't been printed in a while, so that's kind of nice. Well, let's keep the land train going. We've got Myriad Landscape, so it enters the battlefield tapped, and then you can tap it and add 1 colorless, or you can pay 2 and sacrifice it, then search the library for up to 2 basic land cards that share a land type, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. It's a shame it said basic lands, because you probably don't have too many of those in your deck. Not if you're running 3-color. But as is becoming the norm with these spoilers, I have no idea what deck this is in. So I'm skipping over the repeat. The one I haven't mentioned yet is Forgotten Cave. It enters battlefield tapped, and you can tap it for red, and has cycling 1. See, that's pretty useful, because if you didn't need red or you didn't need another land, ditch it for 1 and then take another card. Take another shot at what's on the top of your library. Basically, just skip past this for 1. So next up, we got a card I actually have never heard of. It's the opposite of Reflecting Pool. So it's like Reflecting Pool, except completely stupid, because you can tap for 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce, which could leave you with completely unusable land, or it might leave you with all 5 colors. You don't know, it's random chance, it's based on who you sit down against, which is not how card mechanics should work. Oh, that's not me who said that, Wizards said that. They said that anything that relies on random chance where it either works or doesn't based on just who you got paired up against, which is sheer luck, really shouldn't be on cards anymore. Well, this goes back a while, obviously, to, let's see, Conflux. And it's like $2 or $3, okay, cool. But Reflecting Pool damn well better be in one of these decks. That's like $22 now. I remember when that card was $8, and it wasn't that long ago. Reflecting Pool is tap for 1 mana color that any land you control would produce. So next up, Evolving Wilds is in here. I'm shocked. This is my shocked face. Also, we've got a very interesting card, Darkwater Catacombs. So it's a land where it has no tap for mana ability at all, but if you pay 1, you can tap it and then add 1 blue and 1 black. So it's like a mandatory filter. Very strange. This is actually an old Odyssey land worth about $3. And next up, of course, it's Command Tower, which for some reason they felt like making a common, not that that means anything. Well, this, fortunately, if you need it, is only between about $1.50 and $3, so okay. And it just says add 1 color of any, or add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. So you can pay for basically anything in the deck. So this is basically just a land that comes in untapped and can tap for any color that you could possibly use. Next up, strange little card here. I guess it does go one notch ahead of Tormod's Crypt on the usefulness. Bojuka Bog enters the battlefield tapped, and then when it does, exile all cards from target player's graveyard, and then it can also tap for black. So Tormod's is a 0-drop and it's one and done, but this is, I guess you would say, a 0-drop, and then it sticks around and generates mana, so cool. So next up we got Ash Barrens, which is a very interesting card. It comes in untapped, and then you can tap for colorless, which once again I don't find very useful in a 3-color deck, but okay. But it does have basic land cycling 1, so you pay 1, discard this, then search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. So you can either use it immediately as colorless, and then from then on, or you can pay 1, discard it, and go get what you actually need. So that makes it an awful lot more useful than basically a waste equivalent. Next up, Urban Evolution. It costs 5, it's a sorcery, and you draw 3 cards, then you may play an additional land this turn. That's just nice. It's a good card to mana ratio, it's only 2 color, mostly generic, very easy to play. It's sorcery speed, but who cares? And then it's potential ramp. Now, will you probably have 2 lands in your hand while playing this? Probably not. But it's a nice gesture regardless. Next up, here's a blast from the past, Sultai Charm. I really don't like any of the charms. I thought the majority of them were overpowered as balls in Standard, but in Commander it's probably pretty fitting. So, 3 cost instant, choose 1, destroy target monocolored creature, destroy target artifact or enchantment, or draw 2 cards then discard a card. That's kind of weird and random, but it's like getting your option of 3 different cards that you might have included in your deck anyway, so why not play it? Oh, because the mana cost is impossible, that's why not. Cool. Next up, Secret Plans. Ooh, that's a Rakshasa. So it's a 2-cost enchantment, face down creatures you control, get +1 toughness, neat. And whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, draw a card. That is absolutely batshit crazy. That's like borderline overpowered in a morph deck. And this is a morph deck. Next up, Putrefy, which lost any semblance of value by being printed to death. I believe it's 25 cents. But hey, whatever, you destroy target artifact or creature and it can't be regenerated. It's just a good solid card. I don't think it should be a $5 card. Next up, Ice Feather Avon. It's a 2/2 for 2 with flying, and it has morph 3, including both colors. And then when it's turned face up, you may return another target creature to its owner's hand. That's just a fun, annoying little trick. I like it. And to keep it face down, you're only losing flying, really. Otherwise, it hits for the same. So that's cool. Next up, kind of unexpected, Bounty of the Luxa. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, remove all flood counters from Bounty of the Luxa. If no counters were removed this way, then put a flood counter on it and draw a card. Otherwise, add 1 colorless, 1 green, and 1 blue. Normally it would say to your mana pool, but they, I guess, decided against that. So every other turn it does something different, but it's useful. Nobody played this at the time, but I think in Commander it'll get a little bit more exciting use. And now we have Biomass Mutation. It's Hybrid 2 and then X. So this is an old Gatecrash card. It's instant speed, and it says creatures you control have base power and toughness XX until end of turn. So this is highly useful, turning your little teeny tiny, like, flood the battlefield token creatures or whatever into absolute giants if you have a lot of mana. And with green as an option, you probably have a lot of mana. The very interesting part about this is it screams sorcery, but they made it an instant. You can do this in the middle of combat after they've already declared blockers. That's a death sentence. You could just win the game with that. Like, they could let 3 1/1s through and block 2 of them and say, oh, I'm safe, 3 damage, whatever. Boom, they just lost the game. It's that insane, but I will say for like 1 or 2 or 3 as a value of X, not very useful necessarily, but at the high levels, it's game ending. By the way, strangely a 25-cent card. Anyway, next up we've got Thelanite Hermit. It's a 1/1 for 4, and all Saprolings get +1/+1. Oh good, my friend actually has a Saprolings deck. Yes, a Commander deck. And then this has Morph 5, or as I like to call it, Unmorph. When Thelanite Hermit is turned face up, create 4 1/1 green sapling creature tokens. Remember, it doesn't have that passive boost while it's face down. I don't think the deck it's in is a 100% Saprolings deck, so I don't think you get a whole lot of mileage out of this. I think they're just reprinting it to reprint it, but I don't know, it is kind of self-contained. It's just not very good for the amount of mana it takes. Unless your whole deck is Saprolings, then it's insane. Next up, another reprint of Overwhelming Stampede. Haven't seen this one in a little bit. It's a 5-cost sorcery, and until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So kind of like that Biomass card, but based on the biggest creature you have, and it just costs a flat 5. So this works if you have a ton of small creatures and then like at least some big ones, which is more typical in a Commander game, I would say. Next up, Explore. You may play an additional land this turn, then draw a card. Simple, simple. The problem is, early game you need to burn this and another land in your hand, so there goes 2 cards, and then late game this is absolutely beyond useless. Like I said, if 1/3 of your deck is lands, you have to, on average, late game, draw and hold on to 6 cards in order to put 2 more lands into your hand, and then why do you desperately need it so quick when you could just split your turns and play it next turn? On top of it, you gotta waste 2 mana on this, so unless you're doing some kind of land loop where it's going back to hand all the time, and you're gonna play this to get like an extra landfall trigger or whatever, there is just no point to putting this in your deck at all. There's almost no scenario where this would actually help you. Next up, though, Cultivate. It's the 3-cost green sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards and put one onto the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand. Then shuffle your library. Fantastic card. It's actually about a $2 card because it is so good. Because remember, if you play this and you drop the first land into play, you can still play the second land if you haven't actually played a land directly. Because the first resolution or whatever of the spell, that obviously does not count as playing a land. So in all likelihood, it's just explosive vegetation for 3. Next up, we got Inox Survivalist. I always love that artwork. It's pretty wild. It's a 2/1 for 2 with Megamorph 2. Not bad. And when it's turned face up, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. This is all just win-win-win. I mean, you cast it 2/1 for 2. Cool. I mean, the attack power at least matches the mana cost. Megamorph it. Okay, now you split your turns, but they didn't know what it was. You surprised them, blew up something they needed, and now it's a 3/2 for the same cost that it would have been before. This is such a good card. Next up, Skin Thinner. It's a 2/1 for 2 with Morph 5. And when it's turned face up, destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. So this is a simple kill spell. I mean, yeah, it costs 5, and it's not even Megamorph, but it's still a kill spell that also turns into creatures. It's not a very good creature. I think you could probably play better stuff. Like, I'd rather have, like, Killing Wave than this any day. And honestly, that card's not even that good in Commander. But next up, one of my all-time favorite morphers, it's Silumgar Assassin. I love this thing. I put it in almost every deck that I built back then. It's a 2/1 for 2. Creatures with power greater than Silumgar Assassin's power can't block it. Oh, you heard me. And then Mega Morph 3 if you want to make it a 3/2. Also, when it's turned face up, destroy target creature with power 3 or less an opponent controls. Ouch! That is an insane amount of tricks and sheer power to put on a card that costs 2. I love this card. Next up is Hex. This is a fun card with a long history, but I'm not going to get into it. You pay 6, destroy 6 target creatures. The problem is you have to target 6 creatures, so there have to be 6 target creatures, and if your opponent only has 5, I guess you have to throw one of your own in there. Now, multiplayer Commander, play Hex. So it's just a fun, tricky little card that you get a lot of mileage out of by the time you probably will have 6 mana. This is almost as good as Ingaruk's Wake. Almost. And that craziness costs 9. Unpopular opinion here. I still think Killing Wave is better. Next up, Grim Haruspects. This card. This card was not fun when it was in Standard. This card should have been banned, plain and simple. So it's a 3/2 for 3, Human Wizard with Morph 1 black, and whenever another non-token creature you control dies, draw a card. Yeah, that's insane. That is absolutely insane. Okay, Midnight Reaper, right now in Standard, costs the same mana cost, it has the same attack and toughness. It's $2.50 a copy, and it says whenever a non-token creature you control dies, it deals 1 damage to you, and you draw a card. For $2.50, you get a crappier version of Grim Haruspects that hits you, and no morph surprises. I almost don't get the morph point because it costs 3, or you can pay 3 instead and drop it in as something that doesn't have the only ability you care about, and then you got to pay 1 to flip it up, but I don't know, flip trigger, who knows. So next up is Ghastly Conscription. It's a 7-cost mythic rarity sorcery, and I assume they did that because it was a mythic in Fate Reforged. It was, I think, 25 cents at the time. It's risen to an amazing 100% increase to 49 cents. Amazing. And it says exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard in a face-down pile, shuffle that pile, then manifest those cards. So yeah, late in the game, you could do some damage with this. I mean, you could just get an absolute army. Personally, I would pay 2 more mana and cast Rise of the Dark Realms. Put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control, period. That is the end of the card. Holy crap, I just looked it up. That's a $25 card. Guess who's going to go dig out their couple copies of it? I'm rich. So anyway, next up we got Willbender. It's a 2-cost 1/2 with Morph 2. And when it's turned face up, change the target of target's spell or ability with a single target. Very interesting. Almost a full-blown redirect. I'd even say it's a little bit better than redirect. And you get a 1/2 creature out of it. I mean, you can't beat this. I mean, the more powerful your opponent's spell or ability is, the more devastating it'll be when you change the target of it. I cannot possibly stress how insane a redirect effect can be. I redirected somebody's Thoughtseize on turn 2 with the card Redirect in Modern, and it just ended the game. Next up, we got Thousand Winds. Not a very particularly valuable reprint. It's a 5/6 flyer for 6, and it has Morph 7. And then when it's turned face up, return all other tapped creatures to their owner's hands. So, neat, but really expensive. The problem is you have to remember not to swing, or yours get caught up in this as well. So, I mean, if you're in that desperate of a situation, and they're going to swing all out against you, you're in trouble. This might save you, but you're still in trouble. Next up, oh god, more Phyrexian crap. It's Tezzeret's Gambit, which you do need 3 real mana to play, and then hopefully a 4th one unless you want to lose 2 life. But that is blue Phyrexian mana, so it has to be blue or 2 life. It's a sorcery speed, draw 2 cards, then proliferate. I mean, whatever. That goes in a very, very specific particular type of deck, and I'm not convinced that's what it's in. Another card I think you're honestly just designed to rip out and upgrade to something else, then put it in a more appropriate deck. Next up, oh yes, you guys know I love low cost like Deck and Stone, Bile Blight, stuff like that. So we've got the blue version of it, Echoing Truth. I love this card. Instant speed, blue, half of it is generic, 2 cost. Return target non-land permanent and all other permanents with the same name as that permanent to their owner's hands. I will warn you, this does not work on morph creatures. Morph creatures have no name. And apparently also not having a name does not qualify as having the same name, even though it is the same name. Doesn't work on Manifest either. It pretty much doesn't work against the deck you're thinking it works against. But any other kind of token deck, kiss their asses goodbye. Well, I'm already falling asleep editing this, so I'm at the halfway point. Let's just cut it here, and I'll get Part B uploaded early tomorrow. Don't forget to check that out. There are some crazy cards coming up in that lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.